Hi, this is Mike Carter, and today we're going to review the BliztRCworks P-38 Lightning that's sold by Banana Hobby. This is a EPO foam model. Has a 58-inch wingspan. It's 42 inches in length, and it weighs in at about 53 ounces. This has two 1100 kV motors and two 30 amp ESCs, and it does run on a single 3-cell 11.1 volt battery. With a 2200 milliamp battery, you can expect to get about 4 minutes of flight time out of this if you're running anywhere near full throttle. It does have retractable landing gear. It does not have flaps, and it really doesn't need them. It uses two 9.5 inch by 7 props. There are three bladed props on each side, and the props are, each prop is individually replaceable, so you don't have to replace the whole hub with 3 blades on it. You can replace individual blades. This uses a 5-channel radio, so you have throttle, ailerons, rudder, elevator, and your 5th channel would be for your retractable landing gear. Now this may sound like a negative review. Truth is, I really like this plane a lot. It flies really well, just really stable, very easy to take off, easy to fly, lands beautifully, flies inverted very well, does loops and rolls really nicely. You can even do a snap roll with this, although I wouldn't recommend it because I'm not sure how strong these wings are. But overall, I really like this plane. Since I got into flying RC models about a year ago, I have 9 planes now, all the EPO foam models and the 44 to 60 inch wingspans. And I would have to say this is the easiest to fly of any of them. And I am not using an E-Safe receiver with gyroscopes in it. I'm using a Spectrum AR610, just plain old 6-channel receiver with a Spectrum DX6 radio. And it just flies wonderfully. But there are a lot of things on this model that they could have and should have done better. Just a lot of little things. And I want to go over some of those with you right now. First of all, the manual. It basically sucks. I would say this is one of the most poorly written manuals I've received with any model yet. I mean, the instructions are just not very clear. The little black and white illustrations that are supposed to show you how things connect are not clear at all, or just not enough detail to really see what you need to see. There are some things that just simply are not covered in the manual. So, you know, it leaves a lot to be desired. On the other hand, it's not a really difficult model to assemble. You do have 2 separate wings that have to go through these side pods, the side fuselage, and then they connect to the main fuselage. All the motor, retracts, everything already comes pre-assembled. You shouldn't have to take it apart or do anything with it, but you should, and I will get to that in just a moment. One of the difficult things about assembling this model is on each wing, of course, you've got your aileron servo, and the wire comes through this channel. And at this point, you pick up the motor wires and the retractable landing gear wires. So all three of those wires have to go into this little channel and go into the fuselage right here. This is looking in the right side pod, and this is a problem I had on the assembly. It was a little confusing. You have 4 connections coming through here. You have the motor, or the ESC, and it's labeled throttle. I don't think you can see it here. Then you should have the gear, elevator, and rudder. Well, here's our gear. It's connection number 5. It says GEA for gear. Here's connection number 2, which is marked ELE for elevator. And guess what? There's another one here that's marked number 2, ELE. Now obviously one of these is supposed to be rudder, and apparently they didn't have the right connector or just grabbed the wrong one and put 2 elevator connectors on it, so it's mislabeled. So you have to figure out which one controls which and get that straightened out. And then all of the wiring comes up into this bay here. And it's just some very tight spaces to get all of that wiring through. There's a very small hole that comes through the side of the fuselage here from where the wing attaches. And it's just really tight to get it all in there. And as I said, I have a little Spectrum AR600 receiver in there. And then the battery tucks all the way up into the nose here. The battery compartment is here in the nose, and they recommend a 3-cell 2200 milliamp 11.1 volt battery. And it slides all the way in. And if you're like me and like to fly at full throttle or near full throttle, you'll get about 4 minutes of flight time out of a 2200 milliamp. Now, of course, you could get a 2700 or 3000 milliamp battery, but it is a pretty tight fit. I mean, to go with a larger battery, you might have to trim a little foam just to get it up in there. The canopy is a magnetic catch. Also, these on the side pods here, these supercharger covers are also magnetic. They do come off, and that does help you with your wiring in here, with the wires coming from your motor and ESCs, and your wiring going back to the elevator and rudder. And you can see you have a screw right here where this attaches. You also have screw points here and here with a little wooden plate where the wings attach to the main fuselage. The control horns are just glued into place. There are no screws that go through and attach these. That's something I'm not real comfortable with. So far everything is held. I actually did use some high strength epoxy to attach these, but I would much prefer seeing something that had screws that went through and securely attached control surface horns. Now these little scoops are included in the package, but they're not even mentioned in the manual. So you can kind of figure out from the pictures where they would go. And there is a little indentation on the fuselage here to where it mates. But it is simply just a flush mount, just glue two pieces together. And they're not really that strong. Fully expect them to break off at some point. Also, when I got these, they were just, a solid piece here. And I thought that's really going to be a lot of drag. So I did take a drill and drill a hole all the way through it just to let some airflow go through it and hopefully not put as much drag on the aircraft. But as you can see, this one's about to fall off now. Your side scoops are also just glued on, although they do seem very solid. Also included are a couple of belly tanks, but again, these are just flush mount glue-on items. But again, these are just flush mount glue-on items that are supposed to glue attached to this little indentation right here, like so. But again, I did not put those on. Number one, because I felt they were just too weak. I felt they were just too weak. They would break off easily, and there's just that much more drag on the plane. If they've been somehow attached better, I might have put them on. But as they are, I think they're worthless. Another item that is just a flush mount piece of foam that's glued on are these little counterbalances on the rear stabilizer. Again, I expect those to break off rather easily. That little piece of Velcro there is just where I mount my little miniature camera. Some hardware that was not included in the kit or in the ARF. It did not include this mounting hardware to attach the stabilizer to the side fuselages. And so I had to fabricate my own pieces there just to attach that. Now, as I said, this does have retractable landing gear. And it has these hinged doors. And this little piece of wire here, its sole purpose is just to hold that door back out of the way. And I did find that this nut and screw was loose, as well as the one that attaches down on the inside here. And these are just spring-loaded doors that the gear just pushes them out of the way. But another thing that I found on this is these springs aren't very strong, and if you're flying anywhere near full speed, just the wind tends to blow these doors open. And you'll notice on some of the videos of it in flight, you'll see these doors standing open. Particularly the rear landing gear, and you can see that one's got a little gap there that lets air get under it and blow it open. The finish on the plane is pretty good. The paint seems more durable than many of the other foam models that I've had. It is not flaking off or scratching easily. There are a few little blemishes, as you can see here on the wing. There's a couple places that's just kind of bubbled up. But overall, the appearance is good, with one very noticeable exception. This is supposed to be a model of an actual warplane known as the California Cutie, not the Californid Cutie. That D should be an A on the end of that. And that's one of the many things that they really should have caught. Now this does use a 3-bladed prop, and individual blades can be replaced. But one problem you'll find with this is you see it's got very little prop clearance. So if you're taking off and you let that nose dip just a little bit, or if you let that wing tip just a little bit, you're going to get a prop strike. Just that much will give you a prop strike. And they are pretty thin, pretty flexible props. So it's real easy to shear the tip off of one of these. Now while we're on that, these spinners come off with 3 screws. Then you have your propeller hub with a nut. And then there's 3 screws on the back side of this 2-piece hub that you separate to replace the prop blades. Now, as I said, when you buy the model, all your motor, ESCs, and everything come pre-assembled. You just have to put the propellers on. First couple of times I flew this, I thought it was really noisy. And then I realized when I landed it, the whole motor was loose. So something you really should check if you get one of these is take off these 2 screws that holds the motor cowling on. There you have your 1100 kV motor, and it's bolted to this clear plastic motor mount, and the motor mount is attached to the fuselage with 2 screws. And if you pull the motor mount off, you'll see the 4 mounting screws that attach the motor to the motor mount. And you can see this mount is actually cracked, but that's because I was flying it with the motor was loose. I found that all 4 of these screws were loose or had actually fallen out. So, once I reattached them with some Loctite, I haven't had any more problem. But that is definitely something you'd want to check if you buy one of these. Go ahead and take it apart and make sure those motor screws are tight. Now here's another little trick you have to, little tip for these. Obviously, this propeller needs to line up correctly with these cutouts in the spinner. You have to check and make sure that these propellers are positioned correctly between these screw mounts, so that when you align the screws of your spinner, that your propeller is not keeping you from getting that in the right position. What I did is I made these reference marks on this back plate and on the spinner, so I can tell I need to rotate that propeller just a little bit. And there they line up, everything's positioned correctly, and now these screws will meet their mounting holes. Once you're assured that you've got everything aligned properly, then you can go ahead and tighten your propeller up and put your spinner back on. Now, as I said, this is a large model. This is a 58-inch wingspan, and the wings do not come off easily. So that's a consideration with this model, that transporting it, you have to make sure you've got something large enough to accommodate putting a 58-inch by 42-inch airplane in your car or SUV. So it does not disassemble easily, so you pretty much need to figure on transporting this to the field or wherever you're going to fly it completely assembled. So to kind of sum up here, this may sound like a negative review because I did go over a lot of little things that I feel could have and should have been done better. It could be made better. Just a lot of little bitty things. But the truth is, I do very much like this plane. It has become one of my favorite models to fly. I mean, and the P-38 Lightning is one of my favorite warbirds anyway. It performs well, it flies well. Other than the things that I've talked about, like having loose screws and loose motors, things like that that were correctable. Other than that, I've had no problem with it. I've flown it several times now, and really I'm very happy with it. So, even though I covered a lot of little things, that little problems I found and potential problems, I really don't feel, I really don't want to make a negative review on this model. It's a good model. Its price point is below $200. And I'm very happy with it. So I would recommend this plane. But if you do buy one, just be aware of those things I've spoken about. And in particular, be sure and take your motors off and Loctite those screws, make sure everything's tight, make sure all your screws in the landing gear are tight. Just go through everything. As I said, mine did not even have the hardware to attach these stabilizer to the rear fuselage here, so I had to, you know, get a couple of nuts and screws and fabricate a couple little plastic washers. But other than that, you know, I'm very happy with it. Anyway, that's my review of the BlitzRCworks Banana Hobby P-38 Lightning. Overall, I do think this is a very good plane. A lot of little things could have been done better, but I'm very happy with it. I really enjoy flying it. You know, I paid less than $200 for it from Banana Hobby, so I felt it was a good value. And I would recommend this plane. So I hope you found this video helpful and hope you enjoyed it. This is Mike Carter. Thanks for watching.